Golf and tennis, two lifetime sports, two sports that a lot of you out there are probably playing. Today we're going to talk about what are some of the similarities between tennis and between golf, and what are some things that we can learn from each other. I'm PGA teaching professional Todd Cope, Director of Instruction for the Sanford Power Golf Academy, and I'm here with my good friend Mark. Mark, you're leading the tennis charge. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Mark Vellek. I'm the Executive Director at Huether Family Match Pointe on the Sanford Sports Complex. I'm a USPTA elite professional.
So we love tennis because it's a lifetime sport, and we love golf obviously because that's what we do every single day. And what I want to do today is we want to talk a little bit about some of the similarities, because a lot of the people who are playing tennis as their main sport also enjoy golf and vice versa. And I think there's a lot of things out there for those of you who are doing both of those that you can really draw upon from both of those types of sports. So in golf, we always start with an acronym we call PGA. Posture, grip, and alignment. So I want to start talking a little bit about grip, and then we'll talk about some of the other things. So in golf, your grip really dictates the style of swing that you have. So if you have a really strong grip or you have a really weak grip, that's going to do certain things to the club face, which are going to do certain things to your golf swing. How about in terms of tennis? Are there a variety of grips in tennis?
Yeah, I mean, grip's always our starting point as well to get players on the right path to being successful with the sport. So we have multiple grips in tennis. Strokes are a function of your grip and how you're holding the racket. But to simplify it for players starting out is we just kind of teach them the two grips to keep in mind. The semi-western grip for a topspin forehand, which is more of a lifting, brushing grip. It's going to get that racket swinging up. So we teach them the semi-western grip for a forehand, and then for a backhand and other shots, we're going to slide that dominant hand into what we call a continental grip, and we just keep it simple. In every other shot, be it a backhand, a volley, a serve, overhead, they're going to use that continental grip. So that's how we simplify it to start. So they're just keeping those two grips.
Yeah. What we want you to take away from that is that if you don't hold your instrument, your tool correctly, you're not going to be able to do what you want with it.
That's exactly right.
So the next thing we want to talk about is, in golf, we talk about posture. And so how we have our body aligned. So in golf, as you know, we like to talk about our feet being about shoulder width apart. We like to flare the toes out a little bit. That helps us and allows us to pivot and turn a little bit. Okay, and then we got a little bit of a knee bend and a little bit of a hip bend. And a good reference point that we use, and I use tennis a lot as an example, and I'm going to be curious to get Mark's input here to see if I'm telling people the correct things, but once we got some knee bend and some hip bend, I want their hands to just kind of fall right below their shoulders to a point where their fingertips almost touch their knees. And I'll tell them, like, hey, have you ever played tennis before? Much like a tennis position, like you're getting ready to return a serve. But getting your body properly aligned is an important concept. Obviously, when you swing the golf club, I gotta imagine it's the same with tennis.
Yeah, our setup is very similar. That's always unique to find the similarities between the sports. The different thing for us is the movement piece. We have that ball coming at us, we're covering a whole court. So the only thing that's really different in our setup for tennis is that we're going to widen that base, and instead of being more shoulder width apart, we're going to almost double that, and we're going to get twice shoulder width. I like to use a racket and just put the racket between the feet. A little awkward for players at first just because it's wider what they're accustomed to, but this is how wide the feet should be, keeping the weight up on the toes, but the rest is very similar. Knees are going to be bent, shoulders out over the toes, and like you said, you're correct. It's just very relaxed. Get rid of that tension. Tension's poison in tennis. I'm sure it is in golf as well. Just letting those hands hang down, and that's exactly where a tennis player is, because we're going to keep that racket coming back and down below the ball. So we want to start with those hands relaxed and down.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're seeing in golf right now is a lot, there's movement, that what we call them triggers, or even in golf, our staff will teach a lot of what we call unweighting. So in our setup, we like to see a little bit more weight on the lead foot, and then we take that weight and we move it towards the trail foot. It's kind of a trigger, kind of initiates the golf swing. In tennis, it seems like, I mean, I watch on TV, I see they're bouncing around a lot, they're moving. What's the reason for that?
Again, you tie in the movement piece when they're returning serve. The serve's the toughest shot of the point to return. It's coming faster in a lot of cases. It's coming from that higher angle. You haven't started moving yet. So it's really important to get up on the toes and get the feet moving to really get into the point and get that first ball back. The other thing is I just think it helps a lot in any sport, I would think, with just the coordination and rhythm of that's just balance and athleticism, is just that left to right weight distribution. So in terms of golf, I got to think it's going to help your rhythm and relaxation before the shot.
It's a great point Mark said right there. I really think us golfers can learn something from tennis players, that sometimes in golf we get very static and we just kind of stand there and they stare at the golf because the ball's not moving, right? It's one of the few sports where the ball doesn't move, and we start overthinking. And I think what we can do here is we can learn something from tennis players. When they're moving, you want to be athletic when you're swinging the golf club, and so I think tennis is a great example of that. The last thing I want to talk about, and then I know Mark's got a couple of things that they like to teach their students when they're first getting started, but in terms of golf, the last thing we talk about is alignment. Okay, and if you've watched any of our stuff before, or you've taken lessons, you've probably been told that we want to have our body basically square to the target line. So if I had this club right here pointing right down the center of the tennis court right here, I'd want my feet, my hips and my shoulders to be nice and square to that or parallel. Think of like railroad tracks. One side of the track is the target line, and then my feet, hips, and shoulders are the other side of the track, because for the most part we're trying to hit golf balls straight. That's the objective. They don't always go straight, but we're trying to hit them straight. Tennis is different. What are we doing in tennis?
Mine don't go straight, but in tennis, again, it's the movement piece. We're forward, so we need to get ourselves to that position that you were just talking about. So the important thing in tennis is when my opponent hits a ball, hopefully as soon as I see that ball off their strings, I can get my feet moving and get my body turned. I want to get those hips and shoulders turned, and as I'm doing that, I want my hands, and I want our players' hands to stay on the swing side of their body is what we call it, so we're not taking too big of a swing that we can't control. It's very important that we keep the swing on that swing side. And how I compare the backswings, I just call it a C-shaped backswing, and that creates just that small little loop where we're coming up as we come back, and then we drop down, so we're getting underneath the ball. And then in terms of swing path, how we're going to hit the ball is from here. When we finish that C-shaped backswing, we're just going to swing as if we're swinging up a staircase. Okay, so I'm going to swing from the bottom step, and I'm going to extend my arm, and I'm going to swing up to that top step to get that height, get that top spin on my shot.
Yeah, what Mark just shared, that's some real gold when it comes to golf, because I really like that analogy you talked about, that C-shaped stuff, because in golf, what we typically see, if you slice the golf ball, right, in golf, what we typically see is we see an outward movement, right? And so I like your visual there of almost feeling like you're swinging the golf club. You're talking about a racket, but in golf, we might feel like we're swinging the club a little bit more out and then kind of up and then letting it drop down and then working back up the staircase, as you said. I really like that analogy. And we've seen some of that in some of our younger golfers. I mean, even Jim Furyk, for years, he played with the club out and like that, and it worked pretty darn well for him. So those are a couple of things in golf. A little bit of posture, a little bit of grip, a little bit of alignment. What about in tennis, though? You were telling me a little bit about an acronym that you guys use.
Yeah, and we just go off GPS, and that's just that grip, preparation, swing path, and it's kind of a unique acronym to use because it's just that fundamental pathway to success in the game. So when people come in, whether it's juniors, adults, we're just focusing on get them in the right grip first, teach them how to get prepared, and teach them how that general swing path.
So I don't care if tennis is your first sport or golf is your first sport. Hopefully you're doing both, because they're both lifetime sports or great activities. There's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of things us golfers can learn from tennis players. And I think that there's a lot of things hopefully that tennis players can learn from golfers as well. Hopefully this information gives you a little bit of insight on the two and maybe helps you play a little bit better tennis and maybe a little bit better golf.